Let him go.
Welcome, everyone, to the Finance Committee meeting for Thursday, October 12th. We're going to have the committee hearing to start, and at 7:30, we'll open up to the public hearing. Jim, where's the best place to start? We've got two articles.
I would suggest, there's two articles set for consideration. The first one I'd recommend you consider is Article 17, which is, I call it the marijuana bylaw. It's a citizen's petition. However, that citizen petitioner, I believe he's here tonight, is looking to refer that back to the petitioner. And that's the way the planning board voted, 5-0, to refer back.
All right.
Okay.
So to do that, we have already taken a vote, so we need a motion to.
Motion to reconsider?
Comes from Mark.
Second?
Susan? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? 9, right?
Yep.
9-0-0. Mark, T, Susan. All right. So we've got the petitioner would like to send it back to, what, I'm going to say back to committee. We're going to send it back to the petitioner. Is there any need for any discussion here? Seeing none?
I move to refer back to the petitioner?
Second?
Perfect. Mark, Susan, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? We're at 9-0-0. That was easy. So next we have Article 16, which again, we had voted, recommended town meeting. Part of that was waiting for it to come through the zoning board for review. Planning board, sorry.
Yes, Lisa.
Excellent, Lisa. So can I get a motion to reconsider?
Motion to reconsider Article 16?
Second?
Number 16, Mark, Susan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Great, we'll do 9-0-1 on that one. Aye, so is there anyone here to talk?
Chairman Conroy's here for the planning board.
Would you like to talk on this?
Yeah, are you gonna have them present first? Or they already have?
We've talked,
They presented to us
they did before,
prior.
so,
okay.
prior, yeah, yeah. Sorry, trying to remember, we had different meetings, and I know you were here on one, so, my bad.
All right, at our meeting on the 21st, we voted 1-4, not to recommend, and there are many reasons for it. It replaces the original intent of mother-in-law concept. So it's not a mother-in-law where you just walk in to see your mother, your father, or whatever. It's a whole separate unit. It is now allowed by right in every zone we have. Residence rural, residence A, residence B. So what this is because it's a ADU, the way it's being built, in theory, it's a controlled two-family, meaning that you can only have 2 bedrooms, kitchen, this and this, but it's a whole separate unit. So if you want to call it a two-family, you can call it a two-family, you can call it an ADU. So that's an issue. Next one is, there's no special permit required. Right now, there is for an in-law. And the whole thing on special permits is, in the Mass General laws and all that, is that allows, when you have something that's not allowed, but you do an overlay or something of that, you want them to come in front of a board and have the neighbors have some ability to see what's going on. Right now, you don't, the way it's written. It's gonna go right to the building inspector's office, and that's where it stands. So if you're sitting home someday and someone's adding on, you have no idea what's going on. And it's no different than if they're getting a permit to do a porch or anything, but now they're gonna make this whole separate unit. Now, there's 2 caveats. This is the one that when I originally read it, I thought it was together, but no. You have 2 caveats. 1, if you're 55, you can have it built. Or 2, the way I understood it is if you're third-degree kinship, meaning if you're gonna have someone else in the other unit who's related to you, your brother, your sister, your cousin, however that kinship goes. It can be either or. We don't have that now. Right now, you have to be related, okay? Doesn't have to be 55, but you have to be related. The one that sticks out to me the most is, I'm calling them a two-family because you can rent the units, flat out rent them. So if you're 55, only thing it says in there is you can't do short-term, which I didn't see necessary definition of it. They said explain like an ABB, but still, you can rent them. So if you're over 55, you can come down here, get a permit, and go rent it whoever you want to. That's, in my opinion, that's not the intent of our whole zoning. So anybody that lives in a single family, you could do it, or your neighbor could do it, and so on and so forth, and just by going to the inspector's office here. There's no requirement which unit the owner has to live. They do, it's their primary residence, but doesn't necessarily say, do they live in the newer one, the small one, or the bigger one. Location of the lot, on the lot, is actually the discretion of the owner, but I don't believe you can do it in the front. So that's where I get into the abutters. Do you want to see somebody's addition or their two-family right next to you? The off-street parking, you know, this is getting down slowly on the list of issues. You've got to provide parking for all of them. Last spring or fall, it was approved, you go up to 4 cars on any single-family house. Well, if you add another multi-unit on there, you're going to get minimum 1, if not 2. And the other thing here is there's no sunset clause. This goes on in perpetuity. You can hand it off to next as long as they register it. So whoever buys it next. And if you were going for a mortgage, I believe the banks would view this as a two-family because you can get income from it. So that's another thing to consider. In a nutshell, this eliminates all the single-family zoning. There are no more than two-family houses. But after the hearing, I started doing some research, and what I got off the internet was from the Pioneer Institute of Public Policy, and it was an extensive list, and it was very interesting. And what they did is she did it over 100 towns, all right? She said only 37 are using these ADUs, and most of them put limits on it. But an ADU it's kind of a broad term. A lot of towns still use the term mother-in-law. The vast majority all require special permits. Very few allow you to rent. And they said 31 out of 37 only allow relatives. And 16 out of the 37 require a bigger lot than the current zoning. And the majority, as I said before, require the house to revert back to a non-ADU in-law after the need for it ceases. You don't pass it on to the next buyer. Don't register in anything. Now, it also had some very interesting points, they compared different towns. Dedham, your lot's gotta be 10% bigger than current zoning. And what they did say and noted is, Dedham was mostly built way back, so we all know what Dedham is. They've expanded their zones, so kind of like East Walpole, they jumped up to 15, so they don't get a lot of requests for this. Medfield, they only allow it on houses built to 1938 and a minimum of 2,000 square foot house. So they've already, each one of these has criterias in there. Manchester by the Sea, well, you know, there's the money up there, but they require twice the size lot. Duxbury and Wenham both require 20,000 square foot lots. Weston, I know we're not Weston, but your house got to be at least 3,000 feet. Belmont, which is, I found quite interesting, has to be a historic house. So you know the plaques you put on the houses? You can only put them there. So you think about how many you get in any town like that. And they have to be detached from the main house. And towns of Medway, Dover, Arlington, Randolph, Wayland, and Wellesley, they don't have this, they mentioned. The other interesting point is a lot of towns do caps on number of units. Hamilton only allows 10 per year. Cohasset has only 10% of every building permit issued that year can be an ADU, so.
Hey, Jack, just for a sec, we've got to get to a public hearing, and 15 minutes?
I'm almost done.
Okay.
I understand, I think this is very important for everybody to understand, especially in the town. This is single-family time, all right? Carlisle, they only allow 75, Cohasset only 10% of the building, Southborough, only 5% of total single-family houses, and Westwood only allows 2% a year of any building permit issued. So what I'm trying to tell you here is, we have something that's way beyond anyone else. We don't have any special permits. It's allowed everywhere, and rental. So what I'm trying to point out to people is, if you live in a single-family house in a single-family zone, across the street, it's gonna be, in all intents and purposes, and two-family, because it's separate and it can be rented. It's only limited on the size. So I just wanted to point that out, and that's probably, these are the reasons when we went through this, we were surprised by all this, but I wanted to bring it to your attention.
Great, appreciate it. Do we have questions from the committee?
I have a question, Jack. With this 1-4 vote, only one person agreed to it, the other 4 were against it.
Yep.
From what you've said, you're giving me the impression that the list of objections, reasonings that you just gave, were the reasons for the no votes?
Yeah, the objections I gave initially was the reasons, and then I did further research, just the comparison,
it.
what goes on in other towns. Because we were just, like I said, flat-footed at that. Typically, that's not what we would do, you hope the guy presenting the article would have done it. But these are pretty much the objections. We went through each one item by item. As you get down further and further, they get kind of like ticky-tacky, but the biggest ones are, you can put another unit separate on a single family anywhere in town.
Thank you.
Jean, welcome. Susan?
Through you. So, Jack, my question is, in this article, it's the short-term rentals within the accessory dwelling unit are prohibited. So you're opposed to long-term rentals, is that
I'm
what?
opposed to any rentals, because now they are deemed two-family.
Well, not really, because you have to be related, yes?
No. What I started out is, it's either or. Right now, I'm 55 years old, maybe 56. I could put right on my house right now an ADU and rent it. That's one of the stipulations. It's not both, not 55 and be a relative, the way it's explained to us. It's either be relatives or 55 and older.
Let me go back and look at this again.
Jim,
Yeah, go ahead.
what's the genesis of this? Is this a citizen position?
It's a select board's petition.
Pardon?
Select board.
Select board requested it. Can you speak on their behalf on why?
It's something that they thought was important to, and basically try to increase the housing in Walpole, make it more affordable. And that was their intent on this one.
Thank you.
Any other, yeah, sorry, Lisa.
For you, how many ADUs or in-law apartments are typically coming before your board
They
a
don't-
year?
Presently, they come in front of the zoning board for a special permit, maybe a couple,
Patrick has the specific numbers. Pat, do
But
you
it's-
have that?
but that's in-law. And the way the in-law is, you can't have a door in between. It's gotta be, kinda like walk into the next room, but it's where your grandparents would be and everything else. So it's a true in-law, so to speak, and they're very, if you see that with the zoning, they're very adamant about no door.
So Patrick, how many per year come before?
And Patrick, can you come up? I've gotten complaints when we have people talk from the back and don't hear the recordings.
So, the average is 6 a year. There's been 43 since 2017, when the in-law unit bylaw was put into place.
What was the question again? Sorry.
How many per year come before them?
It's about 6 per year since the bylaw was put in place.
So that doesn't sound like a huge problem to me, and certainly if there's a way for people to get housing for their elderly parents or their kids that are trying to launch, I don't want to make it any more difficult for them. I mean, it's expensive to get housing out here.
The point I think you might have missed is, if you're 55 years old, you can build a unit and rent it to anybody. This has now become multifamily.
No, that's actually not accurate,
Patrick, that's what you told me the other night.
No, told you what it said.
Go ahead, Patrick, why don't you answer?
Yep, so the purpose is still relatively the same as the previous bylaw in terms of keeping the kinship component. The only addition to that was hearing reception from the last time we came forward. We tried to find a middle solution. There are towns that are looking at this. 2021 was when the state made changes to the zoning act, including provisions for accessory dwelling units. It's one of these housing initiatives that the state going along with the MBTA that they're trying to encourage towns to look into and reinvestigate. So our provision is more or less a middle solution by keeping the in-law provision, as well as allowing an option for an individual, a senior citizen, I guess, even though I wouldn't say 55 senior citizen, but an individual over the age of 55 to also habitate that accessory dwelling unit.
Can I ask a follow-on question?
Please.
So I know one of the issues we had before is that we didn't feel that this went far enough. We liked the idea of the ADUs, but we didn't like the idea of saying the town gets to define what we consider family. Would you say that saying that someone who's over 55 could be a resident there is the town's way of saying we're going to try to be a little more flexible? If you have a family friend who doesn't meet that criteria of 3 degrees of kinship but needs a place, is that sort of a halfway step to making it?
That's correct.
Inclusive.
You know, I mean, aging in place is a issue that's constantly brought up in communities. People that are on a fixed income, wanting to live in the community that they've resided in for years. Housing is not cheap. And so this is kind of trying to find a solution to those individuals that are in a town over a certain age that they can still find, live in town, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it could even be that the older people own the original home, they build the ADU, they move into it, they're paying rent to their kids who now inhabit the bigger home and all that.
see that frequently. A lot of in-law suites that come through. Some are having, mother or father live in. Others are, it's the mother and father going in the in-law suite, and the daughter and her family is coming home and living in the main house. So,
Can I ask a question of Patrick?
Sure.
Maybe I misremember, but, so you're telling me, so I understand, so everybody here understands, is the criteria is you have to be 55 and you can only have relatives in there.
it's relatives or an individual that is 55.
Okay. You've got to be 55 to build this, correct?
No,
All right, you've got to be, who can build this?
anyone.
So there's, what's the 55?
The individual that can occupy the AD unit can either be family or an individual that is 55.
Okay, so he doesn't have to be family?
In this situation, no.
No, okay, so goes back to what I said, you don't have to be, you don't have to be related to be in that aid in the second unit.
You just have to be over 55
Yeah.
if you're not related.
Correct, so now, but you are renting them out. So,
It's not necessarily specific, and I know in terms of, whether this is a two-family, it's not a two-family. It is an accessory use to a primary use, which is a single family. We have other elements of our zoning that prevent a two-family style dwelling from occurring in town. That's why we have zoning in place. I know we talked to the building commissioner about this, and that's one of those things that it seems to be misconstrued that this is somehow a two-family. It is not a two-family. It is a subordinate use to the primary use.
Oh, Susan, sorry.
Through you. So I have 2 questions. One, what is the definition of a short-term rental?
Well, short-term rental would typically be like an Airbnb situation. That would be someone that is not there for, I guess,
But is it-
longer than.
Is it defined in some way? Like, would 6 months be short-term? Would 9 months be short?
Jim would be the
Yeah.
right person. He'll be doing
Yeah,
it.
so short-term rentals under building code is anything up to 90 days.
9 days, thank you. All right. And my other question is, you said that it's not a two-family, and I believe you, but could you explain the difference?
So
Because Jim's going to be doing the enforcement.
So two-family, so when you write a zoning article, as most zoning articles, if you were to write every single rule and regulation in, we'd be carrying wheeling books in here. So when you write a zoning article, you don't have to find everything in it because the underlying zoning backs it up. So in this case, it is going from basically an in-law, which is the same as an in-law. An in-law was third degree kinship. Virtually the only change is the select board wanted, that we had a 62, they dropped it down to 55 to rent, to let someone live there with you. It's still attached to the house, it's still a single family. If you build it in an RA, RB or rural zone, that is a single family zone. If someone decides to block this off and go rent it as a two-family, that's where that's where the building department step in, and it's a violation of our zoning. Our underlying zoning backed this article up, as it does with other articles. So a two-family is two separated, completely separated, independent living units. This is not what an ADU is. The intent from the state side, if you would break down to other, as Mr. Conroy said, other towns have brought it in. Some towns have said you can build it completely independent of the main house. Now you're making it two-family. That's different. This is not intended for a two-family. Even if you want it as a two-family, our underlying zoning won't let you. And I believe the last time this was in front of you, Ms. Josette brought up that she knows a few people that have turned the in-laws into two families. That is a violation. So if we knew where they were, they'd be getting violations saying you're returning it back to single family with an in-law. So that's why an ADU cannot be used as a two-family.
So the reason why I'm asking this, I'm going to press a little bit more, is because I envision this being a subject of discussion at town meeting, and I'd like to understand it. So let's say that I build an accessory dwelling on my property, and I rent it to my friend in town who's 60. What's the difference between that and somebody down the road who has a duplex? You know, the identical, just a wall between the two. That also is one building, is it not? Separate and.
So the difference in that with the ADU, again, they're allowed, the board brought in, they wanted anybody from 55 up could get a space to live, to keep our housing up. But that unit is attached to a single family home. The separation between them is a door or a regular, like, again, it's a standard wall from your bedroom to your kitchen. When you do a duplex, you have an independent power supply, you have an independent water supply, you have a fire-rated wall of up to 2 hours between the units.
Thank you.
So it's
I
completely
understand
separated
it.
building.
And I think this will come up, so I think it's
Oh, yeah,
important
it
for us to
definitely
be
will.
able to explain the difference to people.
And it can only be up to 900 square feet, right?
Is the max, so yeah.
I'd like to,
Hold on, I got,
Yeah, my question was, I've heard it a couple times where you can't rent it, it's not rent, you can let someone live there, like, how do you define rent? You know, like, did you have to sign a contract as a renter, or you're not allowed to sign a contract, you just, maybe they slip you some bucks under the door for whatever, for living there, like, how does that even work?
Yeah, so in the intent of the article from the select board was, again, it's basically an in-law with a third type of kinship. And from the last time they came in front of you, there was people wanted rented, people didn't want it rented, so they were trying to find a balancing act in the middle. They came back with, it's basically an in-law, that's third kind of kinship, attached to the house. The caveat they added onto it is someone over 55 can rent this because it's to help age in place. So that's the caveat, anybody over 55 could. So if I built a house and I had a friend that was 55, I can let them go in there. Again, if they're going to do it, that's fine. But if we get a phone call where there's two families living in it, whether they're paying them rent or not paying them rent, if they're not third type kinship or over 55, they're in violation of our zoning.
I would also argue in this bylaw that's a little different from the other one, there is both a biannual update that needs to occur for someone that is permitted for this use. So basically what that means is that every 2 years, they would need to recertify through the building department that the use is compliant with the zoning, which currently that does not occur with in-law suites.
Question?
sorry, Josette, go ahead.
No problem. How do the utilities come in this? Do you have separate utilities, or is this going to be, what are all the utilities under the owner's?
It's still under the single-family home, so it's one water supply, one power
That's
supply.
the difference, too. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, excuse me.
can I want to
I
answer
I just want to make sure,
Yeah, I know.
committee
really.
member, sorry, I've been taking notes and
I
not
know,
paying as
it's
much attention.
challenging.
Does anyone else have any questions? Good, go
I
ahead,
just
Jack.
want to address the utilities. You can have a single water source, and you can have single utilities. You can rent an apartment with full utilities. So you got one source. So this is no different than the big offices, I mean,
No, where I was
apartments.
coming from was the billing issue of the utilities. Does that stay with the ownership
Yeah.
of the home, which is my understanding?
Yeah.
Whereas your duplex, it's two different billing sources and responsibility parties.
Yeah, so legally, you can have a single-family home put in an illegal apartment in the basement, and you can split the electrical bill, you can split the water bill. It's an illegal apartment, so you can share it if you want. People do it, people have done it. I found triple deckers where they're running on 1 meter. You're going to find every sort. Our intent is, this is what this law is. If you break it, it gives us the authority to step in and move people out. So yeah, Mr. Conroy is right. You could have the ADU being lived in and all going off the 1 meter and splitting the bill. But if they are not third kind of kinship or over 55, that's a zoning violation.
Okay. I'm going to let Larry ask a question, but before then, we'll get to you. It looks like we're at 7:28 now, so at 7:30, we've got to open the public hearing.
We can continue the discussion.
So
The
talk
hearing
fast.
just needs to be open.
What's that?
We can continue the discussion, the hearing just needs to be open.
Okay. Good, thank you. Larry?
Why have it by right? Why can't we be able to incorporate language into, say, the neighbors, the community, whatever, has at least an awareness of it, and they can at least listen what's going on and know what's going on next to their house or on their street? By right bothers me.
So the reason I'm
Well,
passionate to
yeah, I
speak to
mean,
this
so
too
the
is,
reason of that is just kind of looking at the data that we have from the previous in-law suite bylaw. Like I said, there's 43 cases in 7 years. We went through in terms of the average time, in terms of how many days, like whether or not the case was continued, and from the minutes, trying to find out just if there was feedback from neighbors. And just obviously being here for 2.5 years and seeing them, they're approved pretty much at the night that they meet with the board, and there's rarely, if any, feedback from abutters. So more often than not, if an applicant comes in, they comply already with the regulations. It's more of a formality that I have witnessed, rather than that there's a dialogue between neighbors and the person seeking that use.
And I know from the select board's perspective, they wanted to streamline the process.
I understand that, I appreciate that, but to me, if I'm living next door, I want to know what's going on. That's just me. I think, and again, if there's only 6 or 7, or even a dozen a year, I don't think it's onerous. If you say they're coming in and getting it done in a night, I think the ZBA can accommodate it. If it becomes onerous, I think you can revisit and change the rule and say, hey, we're bogging down people, or the ZBA's screaming for, give us relief. But that's it. Thank you.
So it is 7:30. Do we need a, we're going to continue the discussion. Just 1 sec.
Move to open the public hearing.
Yeah.
Motion to open the public hearing?
Second?
Mark and Susan, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So we're up to 11, yep. Great. All right. So let's just continue this conversation, and then we'll open it up to the public if there's any questions on this article, and then we'll go back to the,
I'd like to speak at some point as the planning board, the one vote for yes.
perfect. Sounds like this is a good conversation for tonight, so we're going to be here for a little bit.
Audrey's on the board.
Audrey was up next, yeah?
And mine's more of a, maybe not a question, more of a comment, but, yeah, I just want to say I appreciate the work the select board and you two did to craft this and respond to some of the feedback that we gave last time on the in-law unit. It seems like, that it's constructed in a way that when you refer to the other zoning bylaws, it's having minimal impact on the neighbors. It's what's going on inside your house. I don't want people to know what's going on inside my house. Not that I do anything out of the ordinary, but I mean, I think that it's as written, it has minimal impact on your neighbors in terms of changing the exterior of your house. There's off-street parking requirements. There's other zoning bylaws that govern how a single-family unit is constructed. And that, even the limitations on short-term rentals is incredibly thoughtful in allowing for those that might be construed as long-term rentals. If I do pass someone a couple bucks to pay for my share of the water bill, I would not want that be construed as a long-term rental. That would be prohibitive if written in a different way. And the other thing I want to point out is that things like these, the accessory dwelling unit bylaws, are something that we committed to do in our housing production plan for the state that we submitted to the Department of Housing and Urban Development in order to increase our affordable housing is one of the obligations we committed ourselves to do as a town. This is also one of the least impact on the character of the town that we could implement as part of the housing production plan, right? So it's keeping within the character and nature of single-family zoning and what they look like on the exterior. It's really basically one of the easiest things we could do to help satisfy those obligations. So thank you. Not a question.
Anything from the board? And
Yeah, I know, I just wanted to piggyback on what the two of you just said. When this came before town meeting last time, I was opposed to it because it impacted general residential. And I felt that, you know,
Sorry, are you talking about the inclusionary zoning?
I'm talking about the accessory dwelling. And I felt that, you know, and the argument was that it's, you know, we need more housing, it's good for the town. And my argument was, well, then it should be good for the whole town. And so my objection at that time was the fact that East Walpole, when I'm an RTM there, seems to be, you know, carrying the water. I like this plan because it spreads the wealth and it allows, let's face it, there are a lot of people who, if you look at the demographics for the aging in the town, I think Jim would probably back me up on this, we're not getting younger, we're getting older. And so this would allow people like me to, you know, stay in town if I wanted to have a smaller unit. And ditto, your kids graduate from college, you know, come home as a couple, and they'd like to, you know, live in the town, it allows that too. So I think it's, I like it. And it addresses the concerns I had last time around. Thank you.
sir, you just come up to the table, so the microphone.
Philip Shahrofsky, also on the planning board. I was the one person on the planning board who voted in favor of this article, and I'm still deeply in favor of it. I think one thing we're not talking about is the housing crisis in Massachusetts. According to the Citizens Housing and Planning Association, right now we're only building 1/2 the houses per year compared to 1984. And if you look at Governor Healy's housing plan, we need to make, we have a shortfall of 100,000 houses that need to be built between now and the next 4 years. So there's no doubt that houses are very expensive in Massachusetts, and if there's a Pioneer study that shows we are among the highest, the most expensive housing in the country. And that's not just buying houses, it's renting. So what this does is it allows in a very easy way to take a very large house that someone may have and be able to do an accessory dwelling. Now, it's important to be able to have more than just 3 degrees of kinship, because what does someone do with accessory housing after their relatives move on for whatever reason? And the reason why it's good to have the over 65 is because it allows a lot of elders to stay in their house, because now they can rent out part of it if so be. It also means that if you have a relative who's not the 3rd degree of kinship, but maybe like a family member, are you going to say they can't move into this accessory dwelling? So it really opens up things. Now, I know there's a lot of concern about doing, having you go through the special permit process. But really, when you think about it, somebody can build a very large addition. I mean, when I walk around my neighborhood, I've seen a couple tear downs that were huge houses, and I'm not questioning whether they have the right to do this, so I'm very good with that. But we never give, the neighbors, that they can look to say, well, gee, I don't like your addition. And this is it's already actually very governed by space. It can't be more than 900 square feet, and it can't be more than, it's either that or the lesser of half of the existing house. So if your house was only 1,000 square feet, then the accessory dwelling unit can only be 500 square feet. So there's lots of safeguards in it. And I know people say, well, we don't have that many cases going to the zoning board of appeals. But one reason we might not have a lot of them is because it can be a more complicated process. People have to figure it out. You often have to maybe get a legal advice or get someone who can help you walk through the process. So it's why make it burdensome? And again, I can't emphasize enough how much we have a housing crisis. And all of us may be in that situation sometime. So allowing elders to stay in their house, which is, again, that's part of the language in this article. And also making it so that we're more welcome, the town is welcome. So in the Pioneer study, it starts off talking about how restrictive Massachusetts is in housing. And the rest of the country's moving in a different direction, because the rest of the country's recognizing if we want our kids to live in Walpole, if we want our police officers and teachers, we need to do more housing so we bring the prices down. And, we don't want to just be a town of expensive over 55 developments with condos and so forth. We need to make it so anybody can live in Walpole. So I'm strongly in favor of this. I don't think that this is going to cause a lot of problems. There are a number of towns, by the way, that already allow houses, accessory dwelling units by right. So we're not the first one doing that. And I don't think there's going to be a problem, and I think we're going to add more housing. And I think this is a good compromise, allowing, over 55 to be there, but still having some restriction there. And that, I think, addresses the fact that when you have 3 degrees of kinship, you get into those areas where, well, what about my father's best friend, who is like an uncle to us? Does that mean he can't move there? Those are real life things. And as I said, what do you do with accessory dwelling unit after your loved one may move on for whatever reason? I mean that would be the first reason why someone may not want to build one, even though it would be a good thing to do. So I firmly support this, and I want to compliment the select board for going forward on this and bringing it to the town. And I really hope that you will vote favorable action to this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just kind of, before we go to you've had a lot, because we're on the public hearing, just want to see if there's anyone here that has any questions, comments on this article.
Yeah. Did you not also?
Yeah, I just was
checking the audience.
just checking the audience,
Yeah.
first in the public hearing. I know Mark, I saw his hand, and then Josette, and then we'll come back.
Under use and regulations, number 6, it says, "The owner of the residence in which the accessory dwelling unit is created must occupy the primary dwelling unit or the add-on unit as his primary residence." So if I'm 55, I can build the smaller of X% of my square footage, or 900, move into that, and then turn around and rent out my main house to whoever I want. And that's kind of what I think Jack was getting to, is like, I've created a massive rental unit to rent to whoever I want. Because I'm 55, I can move into the unit, and I've qualified under the bylaw.
Yeah, so so it allows you to move into the ADU unit, but your house can only be to third kind of kinship. You can't just rent it out to anybody, because if you do that, that's the issue.
So even though I'm 55, I can build a unit, I can give a unit to whoever I want who's 55.
Yes.
But if I move into the smaller unit, I can't rent to anybody else who's not 55.
You can't, so you can rent it to someone who is 55, but you can't rent to the entire family. So it's very similar like an in-law right now. Most in-laws right now is you're the homeowner, you get up into the 70s, and you decide, I'm going to build an in-law, move into my in-law, and my kids are going to move into the main house. That's the same intention
That's
of
the kinship, but I can't just turn around and say, I can rent to somebody who's 55 who has 2 kids and a sibling.
Not an
Okay.
entire family, no, that's not the
Okay.
intent. And that, again, that's where the
Because
underlying
it kind of
zoning.
reverses the responsibility of
Yes.
the add-on.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 55 too for the ADU, with the intention of the select board was that, again, you bring your parents in for a while, God forbid they pass away, or in my case, my parents aren't out here, but if I build a unit and I have a friend or someone who's worked for me that's over 55, I can let them move into it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Josette?
With all the conversation, I don't think, and I liked your points of comparing where we were to where we are right now. A lot of great work has been done. But the one question I have, with this change, do we still send out notifications? No, it eliminates notifications?
So with as of right, so the reason the select board are moving forward to as of right was based on the last time they were in front of the board. They literally came in front of this board, I believe, 3 times. The first time was as of right, larger in-law. It was 50-50 split. They went back, Patrick and the select board rewrote it, made a special permit but smaller, 50-50 again. Came back a third time, bigger, as of right, 50-50 split again. So this is why they decided to go with ADU and bring in some of these things that we heard, that they heard, and wrote it this way. And that's why the intent of it is, if it's allowed as of right, they don't get to go to the select board, or the zoning board, my apologies. They do come to the building department, but they have to meet all the criteria that's going. And it's very similar to what Mr. Shagorowski said. I can add an addition of 7 bedrooms, 27 bathrooms to my house, and I don't have to tell my neighbour anything. The only real difference in this is you put a kitchen in. That's it. So you could do, but it's limited to 900 square feet. So the way the select board are looking at this is, it's 900 square feet with a kitchen for your immediate family or someone that can age in place. The only difference between that and me building a 4,000 square foot addition, I don't have to tell you I'm building a 4,000 square foot addition as long as I put a kitchen in there.
Okay.
You're limited to the size, but as of right.
So the as of right eliminates notification.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Any other questions, comments? We can vote on this now, right? Oh, sorry, go
I
ahead, Jeff.
clear some stuff up?
Sure.
I heard a lot of, every streamline, everything. It wasn't brought up, but you can't do this in a GR if you have a multifamily. So if you have a 2 side-by-side, you can't add on to that if you lived in this unit to put another, your relative. That's what I was told, correct? Okay. So in GR, which is your main thrust of all your housing, if you had a big 2-family and you lived in this side and you're renting this, and you wanted to bring your in-law here, you can't add on. No, which makes 0 sense. If you're looking for added units, then why are you prohibiting a place that you could have it? That doesn't make any sense. You're attacking the single family, but not the, to me, if it meets the criteria, they should allow it, but they haven't.
Makes perfect sense to me, but I think it's just a difference of opinion,
Yeah, but
which is what we're all entitled to here.
yeah, and what's also very interesting, they talk about streamlining, it's funny, is in general residence means you can have multifamilies there, but you still have to go through special permits. Now we're doing this, you don't have to do a special permit. If they really want to streamline, wouldn't they have attacked that first to make it more open? That's what I'm hearing tonight. I just want everyone to understand, you still got to do it in general residence for any, from 2-family up, you got to go for a special permit. Here, you don't have to. I'm just pointing out the differences between the two, and just, I will leave, to remember that this is a whole separate unit. They call it accessory, but it isn't like the nice in-law, because you can be able to be in there by yourself, which if this goes through, I wouldn't want to have the guy I'm renting from being able to walk in anytime anyway, but it is a whole separate unit. So I just wanted to point those out that didn't get mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
Do we have a motion?
I move favorable action on Article
Mark? So we just inverted this time?
16?
Yeah, that's what, just making sure. This is 16, right?
Yeah.
Susan, Mark. So we have a motion for favorable action. All those in favor, let's rate, in case we have a different opinion, raise your hands. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. And I didn't think anyone abstained, just to make sure. And that's Larry.
11, not 12.
So wait a minute.
How do we put it?
3 noes, right?
3?
Three noes?
Yeah.
What were the no's again?
1, 2, 3.
No, 1, Steve, 4. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, okay, so
All right,
that's,
sorry. That's the reason, shouldn't have me doing the math.
7-4, Mr. Chair.
7, 4, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
this is Finance Committee.
Yay. We got to start doing these in the morning. These evening meetings aren't good for my math skills. All right, 7, 4, so we have favorable action. Motion passed. Great. So we're in the public hearing now. Do we have questions? So I found doing this, it's easier just to, yeah, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Name's Ron Ardeen, and what you just heard is why I always, and I've been quoted, that zoning articles make your head hurt.
So that,
I'm not
say
gonna-
that again?
Zoning articles make my head hurt. You know, you put a comma in, you put in something that changes the tone of the article, but I'm not here to speak to that article, that's what you have. What I am concerned with, or suggest to this committee, is this is the first time in over the 30 years I lived in Walpole, that I've received a packet that doesn't lift the Finance Committee. You people put in a lot of time and effort, spend a lot of time and effort on discussions, but there's no mention of who the Finance Committee is. It just says Finance Committee. Historically, over the past 30 years, it lists every single member, who the chair is, and the vice chair, and I've sat in that seat many a time, many years, and you spend a lot of time and effort, and it should be recognized by the people in the town. It also should be, if anyone in the town has questions, they have this booklet, and it says, all right, I know that person, they're my neighbor, I didn't know they were on FinCom, they can contact you. So I suggest then, in the future, that the committee, the Finance Committee, go back to putting in the full members of the Finance Committee in this booklet. Because if it not, it really doesn't say, it does state in the beginning, report a recommendation to the Finance Committee, but who's the Finance Committee? I mean, so,
I'm going to
that's a
assume that mistake
recommendation
is on
I
me for writing my letter and not putting all the names in there, so.
So I,
Point and note it for the future.
thank you. That was it. Enjoy town meeting, and thank you very much.
Ron, should they also list our pay?
Yeah.
I think you should. Because I haven't got mine for retro. If you do, if you get paid, make mine retro. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Good luck.
Ron.
Do we have any other members of the audience with any questions? I can go through each article and raise it, but figure, yeah, please, step right up.
So mine is on Article 13,
Yep.
comments. So this is on the article to change the date of the town election.
Yep.
Just one point, could you give your name, please,
Oh,
for the
sorry.
record? Thanks.
Sarah Katib. I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 8. So I appreciate the goal of the article to increase voter turnout. I share that goal. I think it's needed. I think it's definitely needed. I think it would be better for the town if we had better voter turnout. I think it would lead to better representation. I think it would lead to better policies. I personally have made a lot of effort to try to, increase voter turnout, so I'm fully in support of the goals. But I do question the research that went into the proposal, and I question the solution of moving it from a Saturday to a Tuesday to a workday. And so we might ask, like why is voter turnout so low? There's probably a lot of reasons, but I think maybe the decline of local media and difficulty for people to really understand, what's happening in local elections, who are the candidates, what's on the ballot. I think that's one reason. But really, low turnout tends to disproportionately favor white, wealthier voters and people with special interests. And so I think we should consider that. Low turnout in municipal elections is not just a Walpole problem. It's not just a Massachusetts problem. It's throughout the nation. For example, the National Civic League said that the number one method to increase voter turnout is to change the date of the municipal election to align with state elections, which is a good idea, I think. In California also, they agreed with that. And in 2015, they passed a law where if any municipality had a municipal election where the average voter turnout in that election was at least 25% less than the last state election, then that municipality had to change its municipal election to align with the state election date. The same in Massachusetts. There was an article published by the Cambridge University Press, which stated in part, considerable research shows that on-cycle November elections generally double local voter turnout compared with standalone local contests. Also, MassVote, which is a Massachusetts voting rights nonprofit, released a report recently in February 2022, where they suggested that Massachusetts municipalities that move elections to line up with state elections may dramatically boost voter turnout rates. So if the goal is to increase voter turnout, I do not support changing it from a Saturday to some Tuesday in May that doesn't align, as far as I know, with any kind of historic voting day in Walpole or Massachusetts. So I'm against this article. I'm in favor of the goals, and, if we could perhaps change it to align with a November election, I think perhaps we could see like dramatic increases in municipal voter turnout, which I think would be great, fantastic.
Go ahead.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
I'm Josette Burke, as you know. I've been working at the polls for over 25 years, so there's been a vast churn there. I can go at both ends of it. I disagree with you, but we can agree to disagree respectfully. It's on the date that we have right now between high school graduation, the next day. We have First Communions on Saturdays. We also have soccer, and Little League has started up. It's very challenging to get the staff, to get the poll workers to commit. And having done it as long as I have, I'm a clerk there, so I've been part of getting this, group of people together with the warden. We work hand in hand, and it is extraordinarily challenging. It has gotten worse as the parents are so divided with all of the children, pulling them in so many different ways, that there are times you're lucky if you can get somebody to come in for a 2 or 3 hour slot. I've been very fortunate, and my warden is Katie Turco Abbott. We have been very fortunate that we have a really committed group, and we just broke the record that we now have a male that's working with us. Up until this point, it's been all females. But it is really difficult on a Saturday, especially the first Saturday in June, with all of what above, in addition to commencements. So I think it's much better to go when you have a Tuesday election. We have a very good turnout, and we're open till 8 o'clock at night. And being at the polls, the only time that a Saturday worked well was during COVID, because we closed the polls at 5 o'clock. From 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, you get stragglers, and you're lucky if you get 10 people. And there are 3 different polls at Blackburn. So I'm not exclusively one precinct. There's 3 precincts there. And I think the ultimate goal is to get the parent in there. In a Tuesday night, after work, after school, before the kids get out of school, we have to try it, because what we've been doing is not successful. And the ultimate goal, I agree with you, is to get more people to come in to vote. And we have to try it. We've gone the other way decades. And the apathy in general, unless it's a very controversial election, is very discouraging and disheartening. But there's no magic button for that. And we just hope by putting it on a Tuesday, and it was a discussion that we had, and it was everybody agreed to try it, and then the selectmen agreed with us. So I think it behooves us to try something different, And hopefully, by doing a Tuesday night, not interfering with everything that goes on a weekend, and you have children, they're not as young as they used to be, but you know how you get torn in so many ways to meet their commitments. And their commitments, in most families, it was in mine, always took the precedent over the parents. So hopefully by a Tuesday night, or Tuesday, and your national elections are on a Tuesday, and your state elections are on a Tuesday.
So I just want to clarify, if I heard you correct, I don't think you were opposed to it going to a Tuesday. You would like it, like the first Tuesday in November with the state elections.
And I agree. The current date of like the first Saturday in June that coincides with graduation and usually like, you know, tons of sports and like the first nice weekend and like, I agree, it's problematic. Like, I agree, like, I wish it weren't that day. But I just think if we're going to go through the trouble of changing the date, let's change it to a date that's going to actually, you know, accomplish the goal, stated goal of increased voter turnout. I just worry that we're going to go through this trouble, and then next year we're going to get, 10%.
So that goal would
And
be
then what, you know,
the first,
what have we done?
that goal would be the first Tuesday in November. But
It's like the first Tuesday after the first
yeah,
Monday.
it's first
or
Tuesday,
is-
yeah.
The way it's written.
But to do that, and Jim or Josette, was there any discussion on?
There was no discussion. I'm actually texting with Liz to say,
'Cause
this concept never even came up.
No, it
I just, and I never asked the question, I always assumed it was because it was coinciding with the end of the fiscal year and starting with the roles and the other things in the town would coincide with
And
the.
that's kind of what it was. You get through town meeting, okay, you completed that. I'll use the moderator, for example. You'd have a new moderator taking over, he'd get some time, he or she would get some time there, same with the select board, school committee.
Yeah.
Before a town meeting or something. Liz reminded me it would require 2 of everything, voter list, voting results, 2 sets of ballots. And I said, besides added workload, and is there anything else? She just reminded me that most towns have a spring town election, so it's never came up, so.
No, it
That's
does a
so-
Tuesday also.
So that was part of my, I think, I agree with you that it needs to be moved, and that's why I supported this article. And it doesn't, I think to change it now and then to see the impact on the change in voter turnout would be, and it would just be helpful. But I also agree with you, and then looking in the future as to further changes that could be made to increase voter turnout, it would help solve the problem of increasing staffing. You would only have to staff 1 election as opposed to 2. It might be less expensive for the town to hold 1 election rather than 2 in that space too. And I think that reflecting on, I believe our election calendar was established when we were a more agrarian society. That's why it's the first Tuesday in November, because it's after harvesting season. And while everyone, and the reason why it's in spring, it's because it's after the time where you're planting. And so we don't have that constraints anymore, right? I mean, I don't, myself. I can say, I know as a parent, it is, you know, I am doing kid activities, not just Saturdays, but it's also Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And if the
Right.
state election encourages me to spend that extra time to go out and vote, I think that would be helpful. But I do think I'd support this article now. It's in front of us now. Let's try it now, and then do what we can to work towards that goal.
Thank you. Yeah, the move to Tuesday in May made sense to me. I had actually thought about piggybacking on the state election. The state ballot, even when it's not a presidential year, is always two-sided because you've got the ballot questions. And now we're going to say, okay, in addition to voting for up to 15 different state offices and up to 6 ballot questions, we're going to put the town election on there for 7 additional slots to fill, plus a slate of RTMs, plus possibly a town referendum question or 2. It's like, I don't remember what I came in to vote for. It's overflow, and then you've got to coordinate your machine so that they can read 2 separate pieces of paper and not count it in the wrong election. Unless you're going to say, now we need a second machine to run town ballots and so forth. So I think keeping it in the spring, but on Tuesday works. Trying to piggyback on a state or federal election, you'll probably get turnout, but you're also gonna get people saying,
I'm not
I'm here to
voting."
vote for this. I haven't seen anything on that. I'm gonna just put it to the side, and you're not gonna get your voter turnout that you
Just
want.
to piggyback on what Mark's saying, she's reminding me, yes, you would need more poll workers, have to keep 2 elections separate, bigger polling locations, we'd have to change the polling locations.
More machines at $8,000
Tracking
apiece.
tables.
Yeah,
So these are all just things she's
Okay.
reminding me of.
okay.
Again, and it wasn't.
Lisa?
Yeah, I think, you know, given the logistical hassles of combining the elections, I still think it sounds extremely valid to me. I mean, there's no denying that turnout at local elections is appalling and state elections not much better. And even though we would have to find more people to staff it, it would still probably be less than staffing an entire election in the spring and staffing an entire election in the fall. If we tried it and it didn't improve things, then I guess we'd have to keep looking for solutions. I think it's an excellent possible solution. Unfortunately, it's not what we have in front of us right now, but I really applaud the research that you did, and I'm thinking, why didn't I look into that, before we got to this point? Because what other states are doing to improve their local turnout, we should be paying attention, because we definitely can do better. People do care, and we just have to make it convenient for them to get in and vote. But thank you for the research that you did, and I do think we could handle it, Mark, a couple of different, all those questions. I mean, it's not that hard, right? I mean,
Handle, right?
yeah, I know. It's a challenge. We can do this.
Any other comments on this one? Yep, sorry, Susan.
So I come down on where Mark is. I think it would be overwhelming. I think you'd have people who would just skip large swaths of ballot. But the other question I have is kind of a housekeeping thing. One of the things we do in the spring election is we elect people to boards and positions, selectmen, and the terms run consistent with the year, July 1. So it would be kind of weird to be having an election in November, and then, all right, now I'm on the planning board, when does it start? So you'd have to, I don't know how you would work that out.
I didn't raise the
logistically.
question when this came up, because I always assumed that was the answer, but I never asked it, so shame on me.
Well, like you said, I don't hate the idea. It's just, I need to work with the town clerk, it's not
Yeah.
before us right now.
But
Maybe
other
it's
than
something-
FinCom, what does it matter about the fiscal year? Which board?
So all the appointments are July 1, yes?
Yeah, but what does it matter
I-
when
well-
the town's,
It's a good question. We don't think we asked that question. A few that we didn't ask.
Well,
like, when does a water and sewer commissioner start their term? Like,
They
what is
start
it?
the- No, they start like,
well,
we've
basically,
had select.
How,
Yeah,
why does it
but the
matter
election
if
happens and they start the
in
next day, right? They're
June
sworn in right
or
after.
November?
And then they
Yeah,
start.
so technically they fill up the end.
the sewer and water commissioners will be
Yeah.
voting their rates over the summer,
Yeah,
and
sure.
then you vote them out of office in November, and now it's like, okay, you're responsible for a new budget, and when you vote your rates again in the summer, you've put that kind of pressure. But with the school committee starts their budget as the school year starts, and now you're turning around and saying, oh, by the way, you're replacing 3 of your members at Thanksgiving, and your budget's not done yet, and you've got 2 months to finish your budget and give it to Jim. So some boards are time critical on.
Some are,
trying to
she's
get-
Maybe the-
reminding me
maybe
that
the
some
school
appointments for
committee,
like
yeah.
the select board come up April 1st, so.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a
Can be
good,
adjusted.
good conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just would, if I may.
Yeah, go right ahead.
This has been a pet peeve of mine for a long time. I follow the turnout pretty closely, and I think it's a problem that's bigger than our town election. It's elections, period. And somehow we have to get people, Americans and people in Walpole, to understand that voting's important. It doesn't take that long. You don't have to stand in line for 4 hours in the hot sun. It takes as long as going through the McDonald's drive-through. So I'd like to explore, as a member of this town and the community, why aren't people voting? And what's the problem? It can be time constraints, and I think the Saturday dates are bad because there are so many competing big events, weddings, graduations, whatever, and that's understandable that people would choose that rather than voting. But I think that generally speaking, we just need to do a better job in convincing people that voting's important, matters. No, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Should we, anyone else? We've got Article 2 from anyone? Article 3? 4? 5? 6? Yeah, I was gonna say,
Really?
turn into
Sold.
7, 8? Yeah, I think we're good. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
Motion to close the public hearing?
We've got a second?
Are we there?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Aye, great. Anything else that we need
Yeah,
to?
so just two things for me. Denny and I talked, I think I sent that out last week, a reminder of 2 meetings in November. Thursday, I think it's the 16th.
The 16th.
And then one's the 28th, a Tuesday.
Yep.
After Thanksgiving. And I'm hoping the one after Thanksgiving, that we could have a walkthrough of the new building if you'd like. It obviously won't be complete, but I think the OPM, our OPM told me she can make that work. She's pretty sure, so we'll probably have that at 6 and then have the
Thursday.
meeting at the Byrd Middle School at 7.
28, correct?
Yeah.
And what's the other one?
The 16th.
Is someone
Thank
gonna
you.
send out a calendar invitation for that? Like
I will
other-
take care of that. Yep, put it on there, yep.
So the 28th is a walkthrough at Byrd at 6.
Walk through at the new middle school and then we'll just walk next door to Byrd and have the meeting there.
Yeah. And so that'll be with the school committee and the select board.
Yeah.
At 7. Show up at 6 if you want to tour the school.
Yeah.
Meeting will be at 7.
7.
Yeah. And then the 16th will be, will we do it here or
Yeah, we'll
do it right
do it
here?
here. We-
And that'll be with the departments, similar to last year,
Yeah.
talking about the budget, the plan, give the feedback in the hopes that when the budgets come in the spring, we can have an efficient spring meeting like we did last year.
Yeah.
That worked out really well.
I thought so too.
Yeah, good.
I think you'll be impressed with the new middle school. We're really making some progress on that. And it's, windows are in some of the rooms, sheet rock's up, so they're plugging along really well.
Yeah.
And I anticipate, like, some of the topics we'll probably cover that night, the 28th is probably, if the Tri-County passes, Jim, what are you gonna do? What's the game plan? And I'll kind of outline some ideas I've been kicking around for that. I think we'll talk about, obviously the middle school, the high school project, how's everything else looking, big picture, because I'm getting, the budget directives actually went out about a month early to department heads. With having a new fire chief, fire department and police department, the 2 most complicated payrolls on the town side. So I wanted Paul to get some time, to work out any kinks we may have. And so I think cover a lot of stuff that night. So,
Great.
Jim, just going back to Article 18.
Thank you, Mark.
The vehicle use, recreational vehicle use. At our presentation that we voted on, we incorporated language that did not show up in the resident booklet. So is the resident booklet what's going to be the motion on the floor, or is it going to?
No, the resident booklet was.
It did not include the table with the additional language of side and rear of the property only.
No, because the resident booklet's the warrant. It's just the warrant
Okay.
booklet. The motion is what you people.
Okay, so this will be presented as part of the motion, okay? Because that was not in the handout to us either, saying, oh, by the way, this is what was actually
No, that-
presented.
Yours will be the motion.
Okay.
Because since it's a citizen's petition, we, meaning the select board and the select board's office.
Yeah.
Can't make that change. You folks can. That's
Okay.
any motion.
Yeah, but I mean, because in the package that went to RTMs, there was no reference to this table change that we voted on.
Okay.
I did
don't
note it, I
usually-
did make it in the notes.
Okay.
I don't
I didn't put
citizen
details.
petition articles, I don't add anything to it.
Oh,
So
okay.
We leave it on the citizen's petitioner to, would you like
Provide
something in
documentation
back?
for it, okay.
I thought that was withdrawn,
Not
RV, no.
the marijuana one.
marijuana.
Okay. Denny, let's remember to make sure that motion's written the way you guys voted it, so.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotta check that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that'll be
presented at town meeting,
Yeah.
based on the way it was revised and the finance committee voted.
Yes, Dan, he told me today he's gonna email out the motions to town meeting reps, so, let's
Yeah.
just check that, yeah.
And because I was asking about that today, too. Not that specific, I didn't catch it, Mark did, so kudos to him.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, we're good? All in favor?
Aye.
We did that.
Opposed, abstained?
Close the town.
One of these days,
Now
someone's
to
gonna
adjourn.
oppose it.